is the Pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast, and I am William Crooks. On today's episode, we start at the Haskell Free Library, where Canadians and Americans will gather on March 7th for a cross-border songfest, standing on their respective sides of the line in a peaceful show of solidarity through music. Then we turn to local double bassist Sébastien Enright-Bachand and his new concert series Roots, exploring shared heritage through Irish folk influences and original compositions performed in rural churches across the townships. Here are these stories. You're listening to CJMQ 88.9 FM, and I am William Crooks. This story is supported by the Local Journalism Initiative. A cross-border songfest and protest is planned for Saturday, March 7th at 11 a.m. near the Haskell Free Library borderline on Church Street in Stansted and Derby Line. The event is being coordinated by Vermont-based organizer Mike McLeese, who has worked in civil and human rights activism for more than 30 years, in collaboration with UU Estrie of North Hatley, the First Universalist Parish of Derby Line, and the NEK Quakers of Barton. Participants will remain on their respective sides of the border, gathering near the large rocks that mark the boundary. Organizers say that the event will feature songs of friendship, solidarity, and peaceful resistance. In an interview this week, UU Estrie member Janet Watson explained why Canadians will not be crossing the border and what the gathering represents. Here's more from Watson.
Well, where did the idea come from for this? How did the two churches communicate?
We're sort of we're sort of sister churches with them, and that we go there. Well, we used to, and they come up to us a couple of times a year, and they in the past they've hosted us a few times a year. So we're pretty close with them, and but of course since all this happened, we haven't been going there. They do come to us because it's easier for them to get across the border, and they're not as nervous.
Right.
But apparently, I wasn't there last week because, of course, I was at home watching the hockey game. But a fellow named Mike McLeese, he is part of that group, and he came up with the idea, and he presented it to our congregation, which is very small, last week. And then he said, my daughter goes there, and he was saying that he was looking for somebody to sort of coordinate things on the Canadian side, and so I got in touch with him, and so we're taking it from there. I don't know how many Canadians are going to go on, as I put it in the press release. We are not going to be crossing the border. As initially he wanted us to go there afterwards for a potluck and everything, and I said, no, the people our Canadians are, in the beginning we were angry, and now we're afraid to go across, and so he agreed, and then he talked to a lawyer down there who said, no, it's not a good idea, especially it's considered to be a protest. Probably not a good idea for the Canadians, especially to be crossing over. So we're just going to be one on either side of the rock there on Church Street, and they're going to be singing. We may be singing too if we get organized enough. That's why I said for people to call me with details or get in touch with me, because if there's enough of us, we may meet up at some place like Colby Curtis, and then walk as a group over to the border. But right now, as I told him, what I see our position is that we are there to support them, in their protest against fascism and what's going on in their country, which is god awful. But because we are so close, what happens there affects us too. So a lot of people have been looking for something, to do, me included. And so this seemed like a good plan, peaceful. And, because we've always been so close with Vermont, I've been feeling kind of guilty lately, that we don't go. Their economy is suffering terribly because, we're not spending our money there. This is kind of a way to show our support for what they're doing. And he's very involved in various things in resistance. He's taking resistance training and all sorts of stuff. So,
just one more little thing. Like, what kind of songs are we talking about here?
They're going to be protest songs of some kind. I don't know. They're coming up with them.
Okay, like original, like kind of chant set to music, or like recognizable songs?
I think there'll be more recognizable songs. Apparently, he's got several singing groups over there that are, preparing something. Like we just got involved, and it's coming in a week and a half, so we don't have an awful lot of time. So, like I told him, we're going to show up, with our placards and our signs that say, we support your fight against fascism and, stuff like that. I have no idea how many will be, because, like I said, I'm just sending stuff out now. But, he doesn't care as long as some of us are there to support, and the Canadians do support them. And, most of us do, but I know an awful lot of people are. He went to the Haskell Library to see if we could do something in the library, but they said no, because it's touchy. The border there is a perfect spot, because we can stand on either.
Sure.
It's the perfect spot. Yeah, it's where it used to be a series of flower pots. Now apparently it's large rocks. So that's what it is. But and people are, Haskell got a lot of publicity. When Christy Nome did her little hoppity hip thing there, bouncing back and forth across the border, and so it's a perfect spot. And I hope it all works out. I hope that people show up. I've gotten some interest that at least be some of us going. So once the publicity gets out, he's sending it to a lot of I think American nation there'll be a lot of that will show up. And I sent it out to everybody that I know, and through other contacts I've had in the past with CTV and all that. So who knows? We'll see what happens.
That was Janet Watson of UU Estrie in North Hatley speaking about the March 7th Cross-Border Songfest near the Haskell Library. The event begins at 11 a.m. with Canadians and Americans assembling on their respective sides of the Canada-US border on Church Street. Organizers say the demonstration is intended as a peaceful show of solidarity between the two communities. This story was produced with the support from the Local Journalism Initiative, and I am William Crooks for CJMQ 88.9 FM.
Welcome to Township's Daily News Bits
with Holly Bailey
and Jim Ferrier, bringing you the news and events that matter to Townshippers.
Thanks to the Local Journalism Initiative funded by the Government of Canada. I'm Holly Bailey, pleased to join you here on 99.1. This episode explores roots. Our roots, our shared culture and heritage through music. Sébastien Enright-Bachand is a local artist who hails from Cowansville, but his family goes back generations in the Irish settlement, formerly known as West Shefford and present-day Bromont. Sébastien has an air of play with his music and bridges all kinds of societal gaps and differences through original compositions and the lure of Irish folk. It's so nice to meet up with you here today. It's sunny, it's gorgeous, big time winter. Sébastien Enright-Bachand, thank you for joining us here on 99.1.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So we've got some cool stuff in the works, and you're a busy guy. Let's jump back a bit. I think a lot of people have probably met you on the jazz scene here in the townships. So you're a working full-time professional musician.
Yes, I'm a freelance musician. That's what I do. Just as you said it, full-time. That's what I do as a profession. So I'm kind of present here and there between Sherbrooke and Montreal, playing shows. Most of the time I accompany people. So I'll play double bass or upright bass in all sorts of settings: jazz, classical, folk, lots of country music too, and pop music. So yeah.
I love that. A little bit of everything. And that kind of, or not kind of, it represents our region. There's so much diversity and so much mixing with the languages, the cultures, and confluence.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think what allows me to make a living as a professional musician is, of course, that I play all those styles, that I'm able to just say yes when something comes up, but also to have a foot kind of in, a foot on the jazz side, a foot in the classical side, a foot in the English community, a foot in the French community. As much as we like to mix them and bind them together, there is, naturally a distinction that ends up happening. But I like being kind of present in all of them. Brilliant.
And did you grow up in a musical family? Like your brother is a musician and takes part with you often, from what I've seen?
Kind of, yeah. My parents weren't musical per se, but we all went to Massé-Vanier on the French side, and there's a really good music program there. So I'm third out of four kids, and we all did the same program. So from the age of, I don't know, I guess when my sister was in the program, from the age of 8 or something, and there was always some music happening. And of the four of us, my brother Zach and I continued professionally. He kind of does the same thing as me. He's a freelance musician and does, sideman work in all sorts of styles. So yeah, that was kind of the musical upbringing. But the program at Massé-Vanier is really strong and definitely put us on the right track.
That's so nice, especially when you breathe life into it as a child. It really just expands and grows, like it's part of you. From what I see, it's part of you. It's a big part of your expression.
Yeah, it shows. I think you kind of absorb what's around you, like I'm grateful that I had music around me when I was growing up. And my little brother, who did not continue professionally, has amazing ears, because from the time he was like 4, people were playing music in the house, and you can practice a melody once and he'll be singing it back a week later, so that's kind of what bathing in that musical environment does to you, I think.
Absolutely. Now, often artists, they have a hard time finding a balance between the creative and the professional. Do you have difficulty with that, or how do you find a balance between being an artist and then the business of music?
I absolutely have a hard time with that. Yes. As a bassist, every music style needs a bass, and unlike guitarists, there are not many bassists around. There's just less. So to be honest, if I said yes to everything people asked me to do, I would be working overtime. I'd be super busy. And in one regard, that's cool, that's fun. But in another regard, as you said, I'm trying to balance out the professional work and the artistic work. What seems to happen is that the more personal and enjoyable I find a project, the tendency is that the less financially viable that project is, just because of the way, art, music kind of happens. So yeah, I do struggle, but I'm getting better, I think. When I came out of school, my goal was to make a living and be a professional musician, and I totally did that. And after a few years, I was like, okay, I've gone around the province, 4 times playing gigs. I'm ready for like a new challenge. So this new project of mine is really me taking a hold of what I want to do artistically. So yes, it is a tough balance, but I'm getting better at it. So that's what this project is kind of the beginning of what I'd like to see as my career as a leader, you know.
Brilliant. So let's jump into that. This is a project called Roots or Racines. And
Yes.
from my understanding, it's through a grant from the CALC, so part of the Estrie Territorial Partnership Program.
Yes.
Can you
So-
give us a sense of the raison d'être or what it represents for you? You mentioned a challenge.
Absolutely, yes. This project, which, as you said, is called Roots, is a duo with my brother Zach, who's a guitarist. So it's an instrumental duo, double bass and acoustic guitar. We're playing original music that I kind of call contemporary folk. So it's new music that we're creating, that I'm writing, but it's highly inspired by the colors of Irish folk music. It's kind of folk with a twist, you know, and that twist is taken from my background as a musician and the studies that I did, which were in jazz and classical. In the music, you can hear the obviously the colors of Irish folk music, but also the influence of my jazz upbringing and my classical upbringing. So it's to play new folk music with an added challenge. And thematically, the goal of the project is, on my mother's side, my heritage is basically fully Irish. So my grandparents, sorry, not my grandparents, my great-great-great-grandparents. Yeah. In the Irish potato famine around 1850, came to Bromont in the townships, which was then called West Shefford. And they're actually one of the founding families of what ended up becoming Bromont. And at that time, they were really trying to populate that part of the world. So I don't know, however many I think probably 5 generations away. So my ancestor went on a Gale Pond Road, which is where the Balnea Spa is. You know, it's kind of a known place now. And they were just giving away those lots, or, you know, maybe for $1 or something, like basically free, which I wish was still the case today. But anyway, That's another topic. So they said, take whatever lot you want. So in the spring, he went and he brought some grain. I don't know what kind. And he planted it or threw it all over the road, and wherever it grew best is the lot he chose to take in the fall. So that was his process to choosing the lot in Bromont. So anyways, my Irish ancestors came, and it's a pretty tight community. All of my mom's ancestors are all Irish names. We've got Enright, we've got Dunn, we've got Dunleavy. So it's really a big mix of Irish people. So my heritage is Irish, and I wanted to really honor that heritage, not only for myself, but for the townships, which are highly influenced and highly comprised of Irish ancestry. So I wanted to kind of make this music both as an honoring of those people who shaped who we are in the townships, and also we're going to be playing the music in churches, which is a way to revive and continue the life of that historic architecture, if you may. So that's kind of the origin of Roots, not in a nutshell, in a pretty big 4-minute description.
No pun intended. I love the visual of your ancestor throwing the seeds, and where they grew best, he decided to sow. Like that's Roots right there.
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea. Yeah.
And when I spoke to my parents, like, we're a generational heritage family out this way as well. And I mentioned the Enrights, and my dad's like, oh yeah, there was an Enright farm out in Waterloo near where he grew up on Lewis Street. And I believe those were cousins of yours.
Yeah, I think they're my mom's cousins, yeah.
Okay. And then I mentioned West Shefford to my mom, and she's like, oh yeah, that was known as the Irish settlement up on Gale Pond. And I didn't know that. So thank you for, you're bringing history to life in a current present day tense, and it's beautiful.
Well, I'm glad that the stories that I have zero fact checked and fully relied on trusting my mother, I'm glad that they check out with
Absolutely. I think that's great. And when we were chatting previously, you mentioned folk with a twist. So, and I can hear it in kind of the jig. You have a video out called If I Had an Orchard. And
Yes.
in my layman's terms, I'm looking at you with your bow on your double bass, and I'm like, it's like a jig. And you're like, well, yeah, that was part of the concept. And you mentioned odd time signatures and weird keys and harmonies. How did you explore that with your brother? Is that like kind of an unwritten, unspoken synergy you have with him to explore these sounds?
Yeah, well, I would say that it's true that after playing for several years with someone, it's just like a relationship. You really get to know them, and you kind of, you know how when you know someone really well, you know certain things kind of tick them off and make them angry. Well, it's the same thing in music, but it's, you know, it's like you know what really works with them and what you can do to make, you know, those magical moments happen.
Yeah.
And that is multiplied tenfold when that person's your brother, you know. So that's what Zach and I have, a really special connection, musical connection in that sense. We've been playing lots of improvised music, you know, improvised jazz. And sometimes we just go places that if I were playing with somebody else who I didn't know so well musically, it would be weird to go those places. It wouldn't happen so well. So with Zach, that's an excellent advantage that we have. And in regards to the complexities in the music, as you said, the video, If I Had an Orchard, it's in 12/8 time, more or less, which is another way of saying it's in a jig feel.
Okay.
So it's definitely inspired by, and this is a conscious choice, you know, I'm trying to make this new music, and I'm kind of I want those flavors of jigs and reels and stuff like that. So it's not a jig per se, but the beat of it kind of makes you want to dance like a jig. And somewhere in the middle, yeah, we have some odd time signatures. For those who are more attuned to music language, it's kind of you know, normal beats are dividable by 2 because you can 1 2 1 2, and this one's in 7, which is pretty weird, but it's something that I really like and that offers me a challenge in learning the music. As opposed to lots of what I play professionally, which is fun and challenging in its own way, but not challenging in the sense that I have to work hard to make sure that I really have it down right. So I like to include little challenges like that, and not only just for making it weird, but I wonder, how do I make these challenges musical and beautiful, you know, and touch people and make them feel awe through music that also makes me feel inspired and makes me feel challenged and also makes me feel in awe. So that's kind of what we're doing with that. There's a passage that I wrote that was pretty weird, and both harmonically and rhythmically, and we just played it for the first time the other day, Zach and I, and just the way he brought his touch to it, it made it all work. And then I said, oh, that's exactly what we have to do. That's not at all what I had planned, but just us workshopping it together then takes it to a new dimension. Like, I write the music, I do, like, you know, basically done 80-90%, but the real choosing of what's going to happen is when we're together and we workshop it, and we send ideas back and forth. I record our rehearsals, and then I listen back and I say, oh, that was really cool, let's keep that. So that's kind of how we evolve together musically like that. And on a side note, I might just say that Zach is a A1 musician. He studied jazz guitar at McGill in Montreal, and he's been touring Canada just about every year in the most illustrious folk festivals of Canada with all sorts of names. I rehearsed with him yesterday, and the day before he was in Vancouver, I think. So he's
cool.
He's an active man. Yeah.
It's so inspiring where you can have a really rich life here in a rural setting, but play on an international stage. Like, you guys are making that happen.
Yeah, I think it was clear to me from a certain age that I wanted to come back to the townships because, I mean, obviously subjectively it's beautiful, but I think objectively it's a particularly beautiful place. I think lots of people end up agreeing on that. So I absolutely wanted to come back here, but my decision to live here was reinforced by the fact that I had tried living elsewhere, you know. So What I'd like, as you just said, is to live here. We're not that far from Montreal. Is to live. I'm in Cowansville. Is to live more in the countryside, but keep that, artistic drive and artistic quality really alive and well. So
Nice. It's that juxtaposition. And when you were talking about your music and the odd time signatures and things, it made me feel like that creates a tension. And when you hear it as a spectator or what have you, when I put on If I Had an Orchard, right away I had a smile and I just was happy. It makes you want to celebrate life or just, I don't know, hug a tree. Get outside.
Well, that's what I want to hear.
That's Sébastien Enright-Bachand. How about you have a listen and see what you think? This song up next is If I Had an Orchard, the original composition of Sébastien Enright-Bachand, accompanied by his brother, Zach. And then we'll jump back into the second part of this conversation here on 99.1. Now, churches, you brought it up. Like, why churches? You mentioned a little bit in our chat previously how there's a connection between the Irish and the French cultures with our churches.
Yeah. What we may not realize today, when I find that our province is more divided by languages than it should or needs to be, is that just 50, 60 years ago, actually, I think religion defined barriers more so than language did. For example, my mom went to school and took the bus with French kids because they went to Catholic school. They didn't go to English or French school. And the other English kids who are English from England, would go to Protestant school. So my church that I've always attended is in Bromont. It all happens in French. My mom and my grandparents all attended that church in French because that was the Catholic church of the area. So yeah, there's a nice mix of languages, and I think I'm a pretty good example of that myself, being as we've come to know Irish on my mom's side, while on my dad's side it's fully French. So I'm a pretty split down the middle mix of the English and the French culture, So yeah, in the churches, the reason that I wanted to play in the churches was, first of all, they sound pretty good. They have a nice resonance, and I love playing acoustically. I love being able to just take out my instrument and have people feel all the subtleties that I'm playing, that I'm using in my playing, which are hard sometimes to, or highly influenced by the medium of a microphone and a wire and stuff like that. There's so many variables when you go from the mic, the wire, then the big speakers. So I like playing acoustically in the churches, which are nice and resonant. And second of all, well, they have always been a meaningful meeting place for the Irish culture, who, chat for an hour on church steps after Mass. I have memories of that. And also kind of keeping those spaces alive, which kind of sometimes fall into misuse, So for example, I know the church in Stanbridge East, where we'll be playing, has actually had a rising attendance from year to year. The priest there, the Anglican priest, has been working hard. He's a young guy. First of all, he's like 35 or something, which is really cool. And he's been working hard to just have people come back and have that sort of community space in the village. So I like to feel that by doing these shows, I'm contributing in a sense to keeping these places alive. On the smaller side of things, and in the larger towns such as Bromont and Farnham, those churches have already been transformed into like cultural centers, which are like the St. John Center in Bromont, which is like the salle de spectacle of Bromont, and it's gorgeous and it's really well maintained. So that's kind of the intention behind the churches. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, bridging the cultural, not the gaps, but sometimes like we run in parallel, but we're so much better together. It's rich when you mix.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Now, just to get into something you mentioned, you're working on a tune called God's Land.
Yes.
Is that going to be performed in your concert series?
Absolutely. I also tried it for the first time, a few days ago. I wrote some music, but I keep writing some because I just want to try things and have it happen. And lots of the titles, actually, strangely enough, I made a list of titles, of song titles, that way before writing the tunes, because I was like, oh, this would be a great title. This would inspire me. And God's Land, the story I told about my ancestor throwing the grain and choosing a lot. Well, up on Gale Pond or I guess on Mount Gale, I should say, in Bromont, they've got kind of rolling hills and it's green and they've got forests. And I like to believe that it looks like Ireland and that my ancestors would kind of felt at home at that place. Why would you choose the townships over another place? Well, I feel like it kind of looked like Ireland. And even now, my aunts and uncles on my mom's side call where they grew up, they call it God's Land.
Wow.
Which to them, I think means there's no prettier place on earth. This is just the most beautiful place you can imagine. And I've heard my aunts and uncles say it separately from another, without my mom there. So it's a real thing. And And then I wrote a really nice idea, like musical idea, which I thought was really inspiring. And then I thought, oh, this is perfect for God's Land. And then from then it kind of directed how I was writing the rest of the tune, because I wrote something and it was kind of sad. And I was like, I don't want God's Land to be sad. I want it to be awe-inspiring, you know, and maybe nostalgic a bit, but not sad. So yeah, God's Land is that place where I'm the first generation not to grow up on that same road as my mom and all those ancestors did since Ireland. So my mom telling me stories and me walking along that road is really what drives my inspiration in the creation process.
That's beautiful. You have deep roots. Like when you said that, I just said, or in my heart, it just said it's home. Like your family is so settled here, and that's so awesome that you're sharing it, like as an Enright-Bachand, and just bringing it to us without vocals, right? It's all instrumental.
Yeah, which I think is better for everyone. But yeah, I don't think vocals would be a problem or anything. It's just for this project, this is what I had in mind, and in a sense, I like telling little stories before I perform a tune, you know, kind of say where it's coming from. But in a sense, to be free of vocals kind of lets people close their eyes and imagine whatever they'd like, you know. It kind of gives this universal appeal to the listener. And so I think God's Land is kind of the exemplification of you know, if you call the place where you grew up God's Land, well, you're grateful for where you grew up. And you're happy to be where you are, and you're grateful to be alive and to have been raised by the people you were raised by. And so I think that's kind of what's been taught down to me. I'm super grateful for everything I have, and I just want to kind of share this love for life and this love for the townships particularly. So God's Land, I think by my parents, my mom calling that place God's Land is just like teaching you to be like.
That was Sébastien Enright-Bachand on his Roots concert series. Earlier we heard about March 7th cross-border gathering at Haskell Free Library, bringing people together in song without crossing the border. Thanks for listening. You can find more stories and interviews just like these on posttownships.com. I am William Crooks, and always remember, keep that finger on the pulse.
The pulse, do 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 do. The pulse, do 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 do. Townships interviews. Don't forget breaking news. The pulse, the pulse, the pulse. Broadcast just for you. Are you heading out for a cruise, or lying there for a snooze? The pulse, the pulse, the pulse. Broadcast just for you. That guy, hey, I know that gal too. The pulse, the pulse, the pulse, broadcast just for you. The townships are the muse, make sure to choose the pulse, 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 the pulse of the Eastern Townships, broadcast just for you.